Hey, good morning. Welcome to Hobby Evolution episode number 68. It is Wednesday. We are nearly at the halfway point of the week. No mill on Tuesday, so the Cubs baseball card count stands 500,022 is the count coming into today. So 500,022 Cubs baseball cards in the collection. Sad to hear the news yesterday. Eddie Van Halen passed away at the age of 65. I think he was dealing with some health issues. Man, that really hits hard because the song 1984 the song Jump from the 1984 album was like my introduction to Cubs baseball. That's my first memory of watching the Cubs or hearing the Cubs on in the background. I was too young to understand the game of baseball, but sometimes you have these sounds or smells that come back from your childhood, and maybe you can't remember certain things about the situation, but the smells and the sounds bring it back. And Jump did that for me with Cubs baseball back in 1984 and 1985. So rip to Eddie Van Halen. So today's topic, I want to ask, what is a real collector? And this has been posed a couple times recently. It's been a discussion, a debate, probably for as long as collecting items has been around. Within the hobby, there are some people who say they don't like the flippers and they don't like the resellers because they are real collectors. What is a real collector? And I think one of the guys from About the Cards podcast last week talked about this on Twitter, and it actually was a tweet this morning I saw from, I can't think of, Heisty Poker DRL. He's on Twitter. We follow each other. But he posed kind of more of a statement that aren't 95% of people in the hobby essentially flippers, whether you take a sealed box and resell it for profit, or if you open a box and sell some of the contents at profit, aren't you flipping? And he's right. And there are some people in the hobby who don't sell anything. They are collectors. They don't resell. And that's fine. That's great. I think there's a part of the hobby for everybody, whether you want to hoard cards, whether you want to hoard cards and resell them like my eBay boxes, or you trade. Isn't that what the hobby's about? That's how I did it growing up. You traded cards. I don't want this Chicago White Sox card. I'm going to give it to Zach. Zach doesn't want these Cubs cards. He's going to give it to me. Jenny with Miguel Sano, she doesn't want Javi Baez. We're gonna swap Baez for Sano. So I think that's the heart of the hobby is trading and buying and selling. And for me, I fall into like every category. I've cleared a shelf. I feel like a villain admitting that, but I have cleared a shelf. I don't do it often. I had the opportunity to clear the shelf of 2020 Donruss football last Friday. I bought 4 hanger boxes and a blaster box. And guess what? I pulled like $250 worth of cards in $60 worth of boxes. Maybe it was my good karma for not clearing a shelf. I don't know. But I've flipped. This summer, I found some Mosaic basketball. It was a limited quantity, but I sold them sealed. I made a good profit, and that good profit led to me boosting my Cubs collection. If I only collected and didn't sell or trade anything, it wouldn't be fun for me, first of all. But second of all, I would have a very small percentage of my Cubs collection because I wouldn't have been able to afford some of the cool stuff I've been able to add by making profits selling, whether it's buying a Craigslist collection for $500, piecing it out and making $2,000 and using those funds to buy Cubs cards for my own collection. I trade. I had a box of Miguel Sano for Jenny, who's in the chat, and she traded me a bunch of Cubs cards. So there's a lot of ways to go about the hobby, and there's not a wrong way to collect as long as you're doing it legally and ethically. And you know, when we get into ethics, that's a whole debate on its own. But you know, if you're doing it on the up and up, there's no wrong way. And I don't have an issue with the real collectors who claim to never sell or trade anything in 50 years, but it's the holier than thou approach that some of those real collectors take. That's where it kind of grinds my gears, where it's like looking down upon us who want to make $40 or $50 in profit on this card or this box to build our own collection and get a card that we otherwise couldn't have been able to attain as quickly. So I think there's a place in it for, unfortunately, the flippers and those that clear shelves. There's a place in it for guys like me who buy collections, piece them out, and sell. There's a place in it for the only collectors. So I just wanted to broach that topic. I saw it a couple times come across on Twitter. It's a debate I've actually been in Facebook groups, probably on Twitter in the past. And it's always been something that, you know, kind of makes me laugh when somebody claims they've been doing this for 37 years and they've never traded or sold a card. If I never traded or sold a card, well, first off, I wouldn't have been able to afford most of the cards, but even if I could have, I wouldn't have the room. I wouldn't have the room to hold all the cards. So Jenny in the chat says, I think the worst is just when people say they collect Trout, Soto rookies, etc., and really sell them. Like, you don't collect Trout, you just want to trade for him to sell. And I totally agree. It doesn't happen often, but it's fairly common where somebody sees my project and they will, you know, I don't want to say take advantage. And I'm sure there's maybe a few that have tried to say, oh, I've got 40 cards from 1988 Topps. Do you have any Acuna rookies? It's like, I do, but I'm not going to trade them for 40 1988 Topps Cubs cards. I totally agree. You see a lot of that. In 2020, you're going to see a lot of, I collect Trout, he's kind of like he's every year there's going to be Trout collectors. Every year there's going to be Tom Brady collectors in football, LeBron James in basketball. They're the hot guys that are going to sustain because they've been around and have starred for so long. But it's funny when you see, I collect Jason Dominguez, Wander Franco, Ronald Acuna, Juan Soto, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I don't know if you really collect those guys. It's funny. So Zach's in the chat. Good morning to Zach. Everyone can have their own approach. My disappointment with returning to the hobby is that the companies try to turn the current collecting environment into gambling, which make it harder for younger kids to join the hobby. And that's a great point. I don't necessarily think it's the companies turning it into gambling as much as it's the current state of the world, especially with the pandemic. I know a lot of the basketball got super hot before the pandemic, so that's kind of out the window. But I think we see what's going on now is kind of a continuation of what started last year with with basketball and people clearing shelves of basketball, looking for Luka Doncic. And there was so much value in those boxes that they were highly collectible that it's kind of flooded over into other basketball products, now into football as it's our current season, and baseball from what we've seen. Here's my thought process on this. This will not last. This current craze is not sustainable for a couple reasons. And we're already starting to see the fallout for why it won't last when you see the flippers. So in my area, I peruse the Facebook Marketplace a couple times a day looking for like collections. What I see a lot now is the piles of Panini Illusions and Mosaic football and Donruss football. I'm selling these for $60 a blaster, and yet nobody's taking them because Facebook Marketplace is a terrible place to sell those. You've got to sell those on eBay. If you're gonna flip them on eBay, because you're gonna move them a lot faster. And it's almost like a slap in the face when you throw those on the local Facebook Marketplace. Like, here's these $60 boxes I literally bought 20 minutes ago at the Target down the street from you, and I'm trying to take advantage of you when you could have, if you would have drove down to the Target store 2 blocks away from your own house, you would have been able to buy these for $20 a box. But since you were late, I've got them for $60. So it rubs me a little the wrong way on Facebook Marketplace because it's like a slap in the face. But that's I digress. So I don't think this is going to last because a lot of the flippers were burned by some of the baseball products because they're not flippable. Topps Archives, outside of the first week, you may get some money back on Archives. I bought 5 blasters, so you're looking at what 5 blasters is $110 after tax. I knew I was going to lose money, but I like the product. I like opening packs, so I bought those 5 blasters with the knowledge that I probably would lose most of my money. I would get 10 or 12 Cubs cards put in my collection. I would pull a few parallels, a couple inserts that I could sell for a few bucks a pop, maybe pull a $5 autograph. But I knew there was, in those $110 worth of Archives boxes, I knew there was probably $40 worth of cards that I could sell, maybe 50. If I hit something big, 70. There's not a really big hit in Archives. So it's not a flippable product. Allen and Ginter, not a flippable product. Probably the worst retail buy of any baseball product. It's just, there's nothing really of value other than base. If you pull a hit in retail, Allen and Ginter, it's probably a $1 jersey card. So people are trying to sell those, I see on Facebook Marketplace, for $40 a blaster, when right now I wouldn't pay $15 for an Allen and Ginter blaster. Topps Fire, I wrote a blog about it, how Topps Fire burned me because I tried to flip Topps Fire in 2017 and I got burned. And now people who are new to the hobby and don't know the trends for some of these products, they're getting burned. So that's why I don't think this flip mentality for every single product is not going to last. Now it may trickle further. Now you're going to see it. You're probably going to see it the rest of the year because there will be some products coming out that are super flippable. Walmart's got a product coming out, should be in stores this week. I think a few have been seen live on shelves. It's Bowman Chrome Retail, which we haven't seen at least in a few years. And it's a mega box. So there's the mega box Chrome cards in there, just like we saw earlier this year with the Bowman Mega. That's going to be a huge flippable product. People are going to run to Walmart looking for that, clear the shelves. We're going to have Football Prism coming out soon. That's going to be crazy. We're going to have Basketball Prism, which, even though the rookie class isn't as, well touted like the Zion class, it's going to be absolutely insane. And I think that comes out in November. It's at least it's already October. It's at least a month out, I think, for Basketball Prism. So I think we will see this short term retail craze continue at least into the new year, and probably into 2021, because Topps Series 1, for the first time ever, Topps Series 1 flagship is probably going to be a flippable product. It is likely to be loaded with rookie cards. I've already seen some of the pre-sale prices online. They're almost double for box prices and case prices. So I think we'll see a chase for flagship for the first time ever. I don't think, even in the craze of the junk era in 91 was probably the peak junk era, there wasn't a chase for Topps flagship. We'll probably see a chase for 2021 Topps flagship. So even though this current market is not sustainable, I think it will last at least for the next few months. So Topps flagship for baseball in 2021 comes out in what, January. We're going to see the effects of this pandemic for several months. We're not even close to being out of the woods yet. So people are going to be hunkered down over the winter. Hopefully something happens early 2021. We can get back to normal life at some point early, I hope, in 2021. People will move on. We'll go back to normal. We won't have as much time on our hands to hit all the Target and Walmarts in our area, to look for cards. A lot of the interim card people, I don't necessarily want to say flippers, because I know a lot have come in as collectors as well. But I think the interim new collectors, returning collectors, will start to fade at some point in 2021 once life returns to somewhat normal. And so we'll see that return to kind of a normal retail where you can go into your local Walmart and Target and you can find some products. Now, the hot products, there's always going to be a hot product. Basketball Prism is always going to be kind of like a unicorn. It's going to be super hard to find unless you're there when the vendor's there, and you're likely going to be, if you are there, there's likely going to be 12 other people waiting for that product. So there's still going to be a chase for certain retail products. But I think it will start to subside a little, especially with this summer, with some of the baseball products, some of the new people coming in thinking they can get rich quick on flipping some boxes, and then they're saddled with a stack of Allen and Ginter and Topps Fire that won't sell. They'll back off and be a little more cautious with what they buy. So that was my soapbox. So let's get back to the chat. Jenny, my biggest recommendation for kids or anyone struggling to afford the hobby is Topps Bunt app. I love the app. It's different having digital versus physical, but it's fun and free. I've never tried that, but that is a great entry point, I think, for kids. And there is a lot of products, I think, that, if you go to we didn't have growing up, and Zach probably remembers, Jenny remembers, growing up, we didn't really have much in terms of retail cards. I do remember in the mid 90s getting cards at Walmart. It was I remember it was like a kiosk, a small kiosk in our Walmart. And then like one side, so you could get your pages, your top loaders, your sleeves. This side had maybe like the complete sets. This side had football, basketball. This side had baseball. So there was some retail, but it wasn't to the extent I think now that we see in 2021. So there are products. The Bunt app is great. I think as an introduction to collecting, there's a lot of great products. Topps Opening Day. Some of the products, that stickers, just any type of entry level point. And then, it's kind of a bummer not to get cards locally if you don't have a card shop or if you can't find any at your retail outlet. There's always, we have the internet now. So a lot of this stuff can be found on the internet. Maybe it's a little higher priced. You kind of have to feel out what's worth it. Blowout Cards has great prices. Dave and Adam's Card World has good prices. Steel City Collectibles has good prices. So those are some online outlets that you can buy cards online. Something we absolutely didn't have, growing up in the late 80s and early 90s. So Jenny said she started on the Bunt app in 2018, everything 2020, hobby cost spikes and pandemic. With not going to stores, I'm having so much fun on Bunt. So that's pretty cool. Zach says he sees people trying to sell Bunt autos on eBay. Porter started with stickers from the dollar store. Great call. Yeah, so there's any type of entry point to get in, and it's going to be disappointing at times, especially if you're into like basketball, because I feel for basketball card collectors who just want to open some packs, because you can't find any, and when you do find any, they're likely at a huge increase, because $20 blasters can sell for upwards of $100. So I would hate to be a basketball collector today. So great talk. I have to run, but I just wanted to talk about what is a quote real collector. And even if you don't sell, you don't trade, that's fine. If you're a flipper, that's fine, as long as you do it within the legal and ethical rights, and paying off a Walmart employee. It's not ethical. And that is being done. I don't want to get off on another rant, but unfortunately that does happen, and it's historically happened. Somebody told me they worked at a Kmart, and this is like 20, 30 years ago, and somebody would pay him to alert them of when Hot Wheels came in. So that's something that it's not new to the collecting world of 2020 baseball cards. It's been happening at retail for a long time. So that's all for today. Thank you for the great chat, Zach and Jenny. Thanks for chatting some really good stuff today. As always, follow me on Twitter at 1millioncubs, online, the website 1millioncubs.com, and have a great Wednesday.